in Nigeria if they can create that level playing field that we have to very much ask for.
All right. So the president of America, Donald J. Trump, has once again spoken about Nigeria. And for those of us that do not know, that Donald Trump has imposed a 14% tariff on goods exported from Nigeria to the US. What does this mean? Let me give you a simple example so that you understand. Okay, if you are exporting this phone from Nigeria to US at the rate of 10,000 naira, people in US are buying this phone from you at the rate of 10,000 naira. With this tariff now, the person will be buying it 11,400. Yes, 11,400. In other words, the person might not be able to, get it, and the person will start to look for another place to buy it cheaper. Yes. And then you ask yourself, how does this concern Nigeria? Yes, it does concern Nigeria. It affects Nigerian economy very well. Yes, because the major, resources that Nigeria send from Nigeria to US is crude oil. Yes, and so US will begin to buy crude oil from Nigeria at a high rate. In other words, they will start to look for other countries to sell for them at a cheaper rate. It also contributes to all this economic downfall we're having in Nigeria. The rise, the high cost of dollar, and all this. It also, contribute to it. But then you ask yourself, what is Nigerian government doing about it? We saw when Trump did the same thing to Canada. Yes, he imposed a tariff on the Canadians. The Canadian government retaliated. They said, liar, if you impose on us, we impose on you. Now tell me now, make Nigeria impose on US, so you see what will happen. Anyway, please just take a little time and watch this analysis they did on Arise TV. Excuse me. This analysis they did on Arise TV. Watch it, then you understand more of what we are talking about. Because some of you don't know what is really happening. All this downfall and rise of Nigerian economy, there are things contributing to it. And believe in me, the government of Nigeria are just the ones. Because if I don't want to say some things, should I say they don't? God, I'm just tired. Anyway, please watch this. Maybe you will understand better. Watch this video.
Trump tariffs caused by phony economics. Vanity wrote an article today and it showed that this was caused by phony economics. While Trump was running for presidency in 2016, he was looking for a very hardline economic policy, which he had always muted even since the 80s. And he looked for people that could back it up, and he told Jared Kushner to help look for. And they saw a book written by Peter Navarro. Half of the things Peter Navarro quoted, very trade deficit hawk, in the book were said to be ascribed to an economy called Ronvara. The truth of the matter is Ronvara does not exist. Phony, fake. Ronvara is an anagram of Peter Navarro. So that's the kind of person that makes policy decisions and influences the President of America. And the markets are falling around the world. The Asian market still fell this morning. And I'm happy that our minister, Jumoke Oduwole, has responded to this. Because we were saying this last week, that we didn't hear any strong reaction. What you were saying invariably is we've got about $6 billion in trade with Americans. Over 90% of them is crude oil. When you look at what we ship out through AGOA, we didn't have tariff on that. I think you were the one, Vimbai, saying the other day that obviously effectively AGOA is over. So how do we struggle? The other 2-3%, urea, fertilizer, maybe nuts, and another 2%. But 90% is going to be crude. Except for the fact that now we started shipping refined, petroleum products out through the Dangote refinery. Over 1.2 million barrels. The question is, what happened as regards that? They said they're going to take a pragmatic solution. They're going to stay and watch it. WTO has said this is going to set the economy back by 1%. The same President Trump that says, I want to cut deficit and all of that. The world economy lost $6 trillion. This incident is cited in the pantheon of economic decadence in a day to the likes of Black Wednesday and others. The economies of the world has fallen. I don't just think Nigeria should say we're going to sit down and watch and probably negotiate, like some countries are saying. The Trump authorities say about 50 countries are saying they want to negotiate. I think we should now be proactive and look inwards. We've talked about AFCTA. How can we move this around? We think it's not moved fast enough. If we can do that effectively. Another thing the Minister of Trade should be thinking about is the overall effect of all of this Trump situation is that Nigeria is going to be a target. How, you might want to ask me? Go and check the chart of the world most populated countries in the world. Nigeria definitely ranks high. If America is over 300 million, Nigeria is about 250 million. If you say we have a low purchasing power, yes, you're right, but we have a big market. There's going to be a lot of dumping. If those countries can't get into the American market, they'll look for bigger markets. What happens to our industries here that are investing? I think the trade minister should start thinking of the worst case scenario of all of this. Because definitely there's going to be a lot more products in the market. Nigerians are going to lap it up. We've had people argue that it's easier to import in this country than to produce locally. We don't even have the infrastructure for production. So how do we get production working? So the first thing is, how do we bolster our businesses against the occurrence of dumping and things like that? And the third way forward will be, how do we attract investment in this very tight economy? This is why I'm going to ask President, all the investment pledges that have been made to you in your foreign trips, please, where are they? Because we need to bolster this economy.
Okay. In 2018, President Trump, now in having a second term, in 2025, he's in the South, said, trade wars are good and they are easy to win. What everybody is learning internationally and also in the United States is that trade wars are not good. They were not good in 1930. They led to the Depression in part, the Great Depression in the United States. And they are also not good in 2025. What President Trump has done is to upturn the basic foundations of American, relations with the world, either in terms of free trade or in terms of America, as that land that is regarded as the land of freedom and as the God's own country. And now, after the announcement of these tariffs, the Trump administration is defiant. The Trump administration is saying there is no going back, even when they had originally said, there will be negotiations. Either Besant or Trump himself is saying that, look, this is a medicine, and that, the medicine will take effect. How is it going to take effect? He says, other countries have been pillaging America, and now he has, introduced this period of correction. Even in the United States, there have been protests. On Saturday, there have been protests. On Sunday, across 50 states, there have been protests in London, there have been protests in Paris. I give that as a background. Now, as for the response by the Nigerian government, what Minister Oduwole was saying basically is that, look, AGOA is going to suffer. That's a no-brainer. It's very obvious. AGOA, the African Growth Opportunity Act, covers about, over 100 products that African countries can, export duty-free to the United States. Now, there is a basic 10% tariff on anything that is imported from anywhere in the world. And then there is the retaliatory tariffs that the U.S. published, and which President Trump was displaying in the Rose Garden. Now, our major concern here is Nigeria has been slammed with 14% tariff. Our major export to the United States is petrol, crude oil, petroleum gas, and then maybe cocoa, cereal, meat, some other products like that. Yesterday, I had Dr. Ayo Teriba, who has a PhD in economics, on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. And he had this interesting response that, look, Nigeria should not retaliate in any way. Nigeria should just play neutral, because for us to take on the United States will mean that we would be slammed with further tariffs. And I said, we're a sovereign state. We should also, show that we are strong. And he said, no, that would be inadvisable. We should just wait and watch and see. Well, that's Dr. Teriba's position. But if you look across Africa, what our Minister of Trade has said is that, okay, Nigeria will find a way of negotiating, collaborate with WTO, SMEs will be affected. Well, obviously, Nigeria has not taken any categorical position. Maybe they prefer the line that Dr. Teriba has recommended. However, look at other countries. Lesotho has the highest tariffs, in Africa, 50%. What Lesotho has said is that, one, it will send a delegation to the United States to negotiate, and two, it will begin to look for other markets. Nigeria, I don't see any clarity in whatever Minister Oduwole has said. I find his statement very woolly. Lesotho has greater clarity. Zimbabwe has even greater clarity than Nigeria. Even if I think that the response by President Mnangagwa, is self-serving and counterproductive. He now says, oh, we have removed all tariffs on imports from the United States because we want to have good relations with, the rest of the world. I think that's unintelligent economics. Sorry to the Zimbabwean to my right. I think your president is wrong. Maybe he hopes that by taking this, acquiescent, genuflecting position, President Mnangagwa thinks that maybe the sanctions imposed on, 11 Zimbabwean leaders who had been accused of human rights abuses and corruption will be removed. No, he's making a mistake. Now take Zambia. Zambia, for example, has said, look, they are going for this international football tournament in China, and that, American players in the United States should just stay back and not risk being locked out of the United States. That's another example. There's another country that now says, Namibia says, for you to enter Namibia now as an American citizen or a British citizen, you must get visa. It's no longer visa free. So, but I think that from the point of view of diplomacy, if Nigeria says, okay, we will explore collaboration and all of that, but the real fact is that the entire world, the trade system of the world has been upended by President Trump and his team. And people are protesting, not just in the United States, but also globally. Even the UK is now saying they will put tax on Tesla vehicles in the UK. China has introduced its own retaliatory tariffs. Canada has also done so. But maybe, the Nigerian government is better advised to just play it, softly, delicately, as Dr. Teriba advised on this same station yesterday.
Absolutely. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Dr. Abati, for highlighting the variance of responses and several different perspectives. I am of the perspective that this is a welcome development for the global South. Why do I say that? Because what we are seeing is the dismantling of what is known as the Washington Consensus. This is what America has led for so long, telling the world that neoliberalism and reducing expenditure on social welfare for developing countries is what's best for the global economy. What has this caused? This has caused underdevelopment. This has caused inequality in several developing countries, because we've seen that while this contributes to industrialization in the developed world, it contributes towards under-industrialization to us in the global South, because we're stuck in a perpetual agreement, in a perpetual global order where we're always selling off our raw materials. Now let's unpack some of the basics of what the 14% tariff really means for Nigeria. For one, the Trump administration has made it clear that oil and gas, energy, minerals are exempt from this tariff. So that means that Nigeria goes largely scot-free. As the Minister of Trade has highlighted, what you have is just a remaining maybe 3 or 4% that largely will affect the small to medium enterprises, people who are exporting cocoa, cashew, which is a little bit strange, of course, because what Donald Trump is doing is a blanket tariff, and we know that America is not able to grow cocoa and cashew. Why am I highlighting this? Because these are the avenues for negotiation. These are the places where people can come to the table and say, fine, this is what things look like. However, we all know that America has no competitive advantage in these particular industries. So let's strike a deal and let's see how we can work together. That's one piece of policy advice in how Nigeria can steer this ship. Now, another piece of advice in this is the fact that because Nigeria has 14%, if you look at the list of tariffs, this is relatively low in comparison to many other countries. You have Pakistan, for example, which has 52%, and we know Pakistan is a manufacturing hub. Now, why is this an opportunity for Nigeria? This means that Nigeria can turn to those countries that have been slapped with higher tariffs and say, come to Nigeria, assemble and manufacture in Nigeria and export onwards to the United States, because it will still cost you less than it does to manufacture and assemble at home. So there are opportunities for industrialization in this process. The next opportunity is, well, America is not the only place on earth that has an export market for us. Let's strengthen our relations with the BRICS Plus nations. Of course, Nigeria became a member of BRICS Plus just last year. But you find that the populations are higher in the member states of the BRICS Plus communities, and there's a general sentiment at the moment that the Global South needs to engage in more mutually beneficial relationships. So I say this is a win-win, depending on how we navigate it. Excuse me. It's now time for us to see how we can get our house in order and see this as an opportunity to industrialize and to move into new markets, as opposed to an apocalyptic end to a global world order.
All right. Maybe you understand now. Thank you very much. You can drop your comment on the comment section what you think about this video. All right. Thank you. I'll see you in my next video. God bless you.